Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of Cuz You Don't Know Football. That's right, guys. I got a new special guest on today. Well, not new, it's somebody who's already been here. It's my brother. He's coming on. He got more stuff to say to it. And I got more stuff to say to him. And I ain't never scared. For all the younger brothers out there, no, don't you ever be scared to talk to your older brother. Talk that stuff. Talk that shit to your older brother. You know what I'm saying? So this week on the schedule, we got a couple topics. We got the games from last week to go over. We got a new topic, make it make sense. We got the power rankings, and we got next week's picks. We're gonna get right on into this. We're gonna get him on in here. We're gonna get this going. He got his audio going. We got it together. Mario, we got it together this time.
First try. Let's go.
I was just telling him, I said, I hope we get it together this time.
I said, I don't know what we did different this time, but let's just roll with it. We got good luck. Let's just use that to our advantage.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Once again, it's my big brother, Jamal. Welcome back to the show, man. Always happy to have you.
Appreciate you, man. Happy to be here.
Listen, man, I was thinking about the title for this episode. What you think about this? The moose is on the loose.
Say that one more time.
The mooch is on the loose. Do you see? Well, I had to say it a second time. It hit you that time, didn't it? It hit you that time, and you liked it. You don't have to admit to it, but you liked it.
I know Mom likes it. I know Aunt Jamesy likes it. I'll just roll with it, I'm the mooch. I've been the mooch since I was born, and that's just what it is. It's just what it is.
That's right. So, hey, man, we're just going to jump right into it. So last week was a crazy week. A lot of stuff happened. We're going to talk about, everything that went down and everything.
Mm-hmm.
So, last week, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to say the game, I'm going to say the score, and I'm going to say a couple stats, and then we'll just jump into your opinion of the game.
Got it.
All right, let's just get there. Okay. So first on that list was the Detroit Lions beat the Tampa Bay Bucks 20-6. Let's look at some stats. Jared Goff was 30 or 44 for 353 yards, 2 touchdowns, and no picks. Pretty much nothing on the ground, so I'm not even going to go there because their leading rusher was 15 yards. So, but Amon St. Brown, 12 receptions, 124 yards, and a touchdown. And we also had Jamison Williams. He had 53 yards and a touchdown. And just going over to the Bucks, Baker Mayfield was 19 and 37, 200 yards, 0 touchdowns and a pick. They really didn't have too much on the ground either. I'm not even going to go there. Chris Godwin led them with 6 receptions for 77 yards, and they didn't have a touchdown. So, what did you think about the game? What do you think about the Bucks? What do you think about the Lions? Just what did you think about everything?
I thought it was a really impressive win by the Lions. It was on the road. It was outside. It was against a defense that, Todd Bowles really, he blitzes a lot. And Jared Goff has not historically been good against the blitz. But he performed well, obviously. You listed his stats. That's an offense that doesn't really have a star player. And so they are pretty impressive at this point. I'm more and more impressed every week that they play because they're finding ways to win in different ways. And this week it was just Jared Goff all day. And, like two seasons ago, you would never have thought you would ever hear that statement made ever again. So I'm really impressed by the Lions. The Bucks, it's Baker Mayfield at quarterback. He's a limited ceiling type quarterback. So you don't expect too much from him. That defense is really where they're going to win the game is going to be because of the defense. And they came after Goff. They just weren't successful.
Right. So did you see in the summer who I said was going to the NFC Championship game?
Who'd you say? The Lions?
I said Detroit was going to the NFC Championship game. I said that back in the summer when I said the way too early playoff predictions. I think the Lions, for the most part, have handled business. And we're going to get into this, but being 5-1, for most people are looking at them coming into the season, just like you said, not having a roster full of stars per se, but very good pieces. Being 5-1 and where they are is definitely impressive. I look at Tampa Bay, and I think they're a team that's playing bigger than they actually are. I see them coming back to Earth, but Earth in the NFC South looks like, I don't know. Nobody seems to want to do anything good. They have the only winless team in the whole league there, and everybody else is just fluttering. I don't know, but I don't think that they're a team with a very high ceiling. Um, but yeah, I think the Lions have handled business where they were, and wherever they were asked to show up, they showed up.
Yeah, I mean, look, to go on the road, Tampa Bay is not a great team, but they're not a bad team. Like I said, that kind of defense, that kind of defensive approach usually gives Jared Goff problems, and he handled it. So you have to be impressed by that performance.
Absolutely. Very well said. Very well said. All right. So we're going to jump ship to the next game. Um, Baltimore Ravens beat the Tennessee Titans 24-16. Let's see. Lamar Jackson was 21 to 30 for 223 yards, one touchdown, one pick. He also led them in rushing for 13 carries for 62 yards. Gus Edwards was next up with 16 carries for 41 yards, and Mark Andrews led them with 4 receptions for 69 yards. However, Zay Flowers had 6 receptions for 50 yards and a touchdown. And then for the Titans, Ryan Tannehill was 8 of 16 for 76 yards. I think he got hurt in this game, right?
Yeah, he high ankle sprain. He went out early, actually, like in
Yeah,
maybe
yeah,
second quarter.
yeah. But he also had a pick, and then Malik Willis came in. He was 4 of 5 for 74 yards. Nothing there. And then Derrick Henry had 12 carries for 97 yards and one touchdown. Um, and then Spears, he had 1 reception for 48 yards, and he led them in receiving. So that's it. But
Yeah, it came late in the game. I think it was like a
yeah,
screen
yeah,
pass.
yeah. So
Um, yeah,
tell me what you think about the teams, where they are, how this played out. Talk to me.
yeah. I mean, look, with Tennessee, they're not a very good team anyway. Their starting quarterback went out. Malik Willis. I mean, his limited stats make him look even better than he looked in the game. Like the game is just too fast for him to process as a quarterback in the NFL. Like he's not there yet. And what's surprising is he's playing over Will Levis, who was the rookie who was supposed to be like the maybe heir apparent, and to take over that role. You would expect, even as a second rounder, if he's good enough to be a second round pick, he'd be better than Malik Willis at this point. But he's not, because he's not playing. So Tennessee, their offense is limited. Their defense is not playing as well as they did last year. I didn't think they'd be very good coming into the season, so they're kind of what I thought they were. With Baltimore, there's something, they won the game, and they're 4-2, I think, and they're winning games, but there's something still off about them. They still, Zay Flowers is actually playing pretty well, but as a collective, the wide receivers are not really performing. I don't know if it's like Lamar Jackson doesn't throw a wide receiver friendly football or something, but like something's up with those receivers, and you saw it a lot in the week before when they kind of collapsed against Pittsburgh in the fourth quarter. Just a lot of drops, a lot of like receivers just falling down and stuff. But Lamar Jackson, he played a typical Lamar Jackson game. Mark Andrews, he played a typical Mark Andrews game. He probably had a couple drops too in there. That's just what he does. But it was one of those like kind of boring games where the better team won simply because they were better. It wasn't a scheme thing. It wasn't anything other than the one team was better than the other, and the other team lost their quarterback.
Right, right, right. So yeah, even coming into the season, I think everybody looks at Odell Beckham Jr. and says what they want him to be. He's not that guy that he was for about 3 years when he was in New York. He's never been that guy again. And that guy's not coming back. And when you looked at their roster, I even said it even like a while ago. They're a roster that they're good at a lot of positions, but they're not good at all the positions that you need to be good at to be a threat. Wide receiver being one of them. And I also look at their pass rush and say if we're talking about Super Bowl contender wise, we're talking about AFC Championship, Super Bowl contender, that direction. their pass rush isn't really up to par. So they looked at, even when Lamar got paid, we looked at this and said, okay, Lamar got help so he doesn't have to carry it. And I'm looking at it and I'm saying, no, he still has to carry this, pretty much week to week. And if he plays bad, they're going to lose. But Tennessee, I remember we had that conversation in the summer, if you remember, with Tennessee and Jacksonville, stuff like that. Yeah, I was actually curious to see with them this year, looking at Derrick Henry and seeing like if he was going to fall off this year, and where he is. I mean, he's still good, but I do think there is some slippage there. Maybe because the rest of the offense just really isn't there. We really
Well,
only go ahead.
there's really no other threat on offense. Like even like 2 years ago when they or 3 years ago when they had like AJ Brown, um, they had a receiving threat out there. The quarterback was healthy. Play action passing was an actual threat, and that opened things up for Derrick Henry. I don't think Derrick Henry has taken a dip at all. He looks physically the same. He's still the physical beast that he's always been. I just don't think. I think you can put 8, 9 people in the box on defense and not fear the quarterback throwing the ball with any kind of real threat. I mean, I know D Hop is there, but he's old now.
That was going to be my question.
And he was never like a fast guy. He was always like a physical, like muscle you out. He wasn't even really like a precision route runner in any kind of real way. I mean, he could run routes pretty well. I'm not saying he was bad, but that wasn't his calling card. He was just like, he was just like a man out there. Like you couldn't outman him. He was like it just like kind of like older brother, little brother, ha 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 thing. Like you couldn't do anything about it. You just can't do anything about it at certain time.
You lose 1 or 2 games in Tecmo football, and you just never get over it. Apparently,
1 or 2, yeah, right.
Whatever, yo. Okay, let's move on. So let's talk about these Colts, my Colts and these Jacksonville Jaguars. Jacksonville definitely put a hurting on us. And for the record, I did think that we were going to win this game. But that's here nor there. They beat us 37-20. Gardner Minshew was 33 of 55 for 329 yards, 1 touchdown, and 3 picks. We really didn't have too much on in terms of running, so I'm not even going to go there. But Michael Pittman Jr. had 9 receptions, 109 yards. Josh Downs had the only touchdown for us receiving. Yeah, that's pretty much good enough there. And Trevor Lawrence was 20 of 30 for 181 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 pick. Travis Etienne had 18 carries for 55 yards and 2 touchdowns. And Christian Kirk led them in receiving with 3 receptions for 49 yards and 1 touchdown. And what is this guy's name? Brenton Strange. I don't even know who that is. He had a touchdown as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think the tragedy here is that Anthony Richardson is probably out for the year because he's looked fun. Like y'all have one. The Colts have a real guy if he can stay healthy. Gardner Minshew is a limited quarterback. He's not bad. He's just not great. He's not really good. He's like
he's a very good
top 31 quarterback in the league. That's what he is, and it showed. It's kind of surprising that the Colts are not able to run the ball a lot or with a lot of success. But, that kind of just comes with not being a quality roster right now. As far as the Jaguars are concerned, I picked them to be the top seed in the AFC preseason because I thought that their offense would click a lot better than it has been. Now, they won the game. I think they're 4-2. They're not a bad team, but there's something a little bit off with the connection between the quarterback and the receivers. Like he's not. I don't know. There's something with the connection and their route running and how he's throwing the ball or how he's reading defenses that they're not clicking in a way that I thought they would. They were never really a strong running offense, so I didn't expect much there. It has been surprising actually that their defense is better than I thought it would be. I thought their defense would struggle more this season than it has, so that's been a plus for them so far.
Yeah, so like even when we were talking in the summer, I said, well, I alluded to the possibility that Trevor Lawrence doesn't take that leap that that team needs him to take, and I think you're kind of seeing that unravel a little bit. I definitely think I think he's going to be a great quarterback. I think, you know what I mean, I'm not doubting him at all. I'm not saying anything bad about him, but I looked at it and I said, you know, he's got to carry a lot. Um, in terms of for this to work. And just like you said, like they're winning, they're 4-2. He hasn't looked like you would want him to be like what you said, they would be like a number one seed, and you know what I mean, make everything like not look easy, but you know what I mean, we like be a predictable team. And they're a little bit more unpredictable right now. And I think that
Mm-hmm.
is because of Trevor Lawrence. Um, in terms of Gardner Minshew and Anthony Richardson, as you said, so I actually, like I said, I have a problem with Anthony Richardson, and I think it showed, and I think that's why he's hurt. I'm not saying he's not one, but my problem with him starting him week one, I think showed itself. So why did he get hurt? Because he got hit, and he didn't get hit in the same ways that Andrew Luck got hit. These were designed plays that were supposed to him run and do things like that. Why were they calling these plays? Because they're creating a playbook for a rookie and his strengths and to hide his weaknesses. So you see a guy who's running the ball more than he's able to just drop back, read the defense, have his pre-snap reads and his post-snap reads, and understand that, have his footwork be good, be able to go through his progression and devise it. When he was in college, his completion percentage was it wasn't very low, but it was alarming. You know what I mean, for a guy that was supposed to be that good. And I'm not saying this is a blessing in disguise, because I don't ever want my quarterback to be out for the season because of his shoulder being hurt. But I think if we were going to have a chance to be great and take steps into the future, he was going to have to be good at those things. And now I think he doesn't have to worry about a game plan. And I think this is better for me this year, because I didn't think we were us like I didn't think like we made a play, I'd have been like, wow, that's crazy. But you know what I mean? Like I didn't look at it as any threat to anybody. So why not take that year to make year two, when this guy is coming in, now he's good and only worked on the things that he had to work on, you know? And I mean, in terms of like games played, he's going to play games. So he's going to get the experience, but he's got to get better at those things. And they're not going to be able to hide that, you know? So that's what I think happened with him. So
Yeah, I mean, I think I watched a bit of his play. Like, it's not like he struggled reading defenses, and it's not like he struggled with he wasn't like his footwork wasn't really bad. It wasn't awesome. He wasn't like, Peyton Manning out here, but he wasn't bad at it. He needed reps more than anything else. He needed to see defenses go from cover two to cover three, and cover three to cover four, and cover sixes, and look like it's going to be an all out blitz, cover zero, and then they go back and cover five. Like, he needed to see those things. And that's the unfortunate part of him being injured, because he's not going to get those reps live in games anymore. I didn't think they were going to go to the playoffs this year either, but him getting those reps, I thought would have been really good building blocks for the future. Him getting hurt, like, I almost feel like they ran him too much. Like, they didn't have to run him as much as they were running him, even as much of a strength in his running as a quarterback is. Because again, I didn't think he was like all that weak as that traditional quote unquote pocket passer. He was reading defenses. He was doing those things pretty well. He wasn't doing them at like a level of like CJ Stroud is right now. But he was doing them, and I just thought he needed those reps that he's not going to miss.
I just look at it and say that anytime you have a rookie quarterback, they're going to try to devise a plan that only showcases their strengths and tries to eliminate their weaknesses. That's how you make it easy for them while they're learning the game. And I think that's what you saw was, even though he was successful and stuff, the limitations, they weren't letting him do certain things because they're like, he can't do it yet, you know? So that's here nor there. Okay, going to the last game of the spotlight games from last week. The Dallas Cowboys went into LA and beat the Chargers 20-17. Dak Prescott was 21 to 30 for 272 yards, one touchdown, and no picks. He also led them in rushing with 7 carries for 40 yards and a touchdown. And then CeeDee Lamb had 7 receptions for 117 yards. And Brandon Cooks had their only touchdown, but he had 4 receptions for 36 yards. And Justin Herbert was 22 of 37 for 227 and 2 touchdowns and a pick. Not much on the ground. And Keenan Allen led them in receptions with 7 receptions for 85 yards and a touchdown. And Gerald Everett had the other touchdown, the tight end. What you think?
For the Chargers, I mean, they keep losing these games in the most Chargerish type ways. Like, number one, they can't run the ball, but they have such an awesome running back, right? Like, why is that the case? Mm-hmm. Justin Herbert is supposed to be this otherworldly quarterback, yet he's throwing picks in the worst possible situations. You got like Keenan Allen, who had a really good game, but like when they needed him to get a first down, he ran out of bounds before he got the first down. Like, they just keep showing themselves to either be like incompetent on the field and play calling and from a coaching perspective, or they're just not competing. Like there's no like fire in them when they're playing. Like the reason I'm saying I'm explaining this in such like a not direct way is because it's the Chargers, and this is how the Chargers have traditionally lost games. And he's like, I don't know how or why you lose like this, but you're losing all the time like this.
I said this. I swear I said this in the summer when I made the prediction, and everybody said it was crazy that the Detroit Lions were. And I said, they have a stigma for how they have been, that incompetence and stuff like that. But I said the Chargers have had that same incompetence. It just looks a little different. Like I wish everybody knew how much money I lost betting on the Chargers because I said, oh, this is when they're going to pick it up. And I lost money on them.
Well, it's because
they don't get credit for it. They slide on that all the time. They are that kind of dysfunctional team as well and have been for a decade.
It kind of even goes back even further, even when they had, because the thing is they usually have a lot of talent on paper on their team. Like you look at their defense, Bosa and who's the other defensive end who they traded for from the Bears, who came from Oakland.
Oh, Khalil Mack.
Khalil Mack, and who's the safety who was like out of Florida State? They got ballers on defense, right? Like, and they got Justin Herbert and Keenan Allen and Austin Eckler. Like, they got these players who you just assume are going to perform. That you assume that they're stars, and then they get in these moments and they just don't do it. And it's funny because it's against the Cowboys, who oftentimes lose in very similar ways. Like, and again, in the playoffs a couple of years ago against San Francisco, like they couldn't get the team lined up before to spike the ball in time so they get a field goal off. Like, Cowboys are similar to that. They just were less that way this game than the Chargers were. And also the Chargers just, they never have a home game. Like every time they play at home, the other team's fans are like at least half of the fans in the stadium. So you listen to the game and it sounds like, it's a Dallas Cowboys home game, not a Chargers home game. That's just funny to me. But like, Dak played a good game. Obviously, Micah Parsons played a good game. Had a crucial sack on that last drive in the fourth quarter.
The whole game, that play, and it came at the best possible time.
Right? Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's exactly right. You're exactly right. But like Dallas can't run the ball right now. That's weird. Like Tony Pollard was supposed to be the guy who's going to step in and have 1,400 yards rushing and 800 yards receiving and all of this kind of stuff. And their offensive line is struggling with injuries. They're just less Chargerish than the Chargers are, I guess, is the best way I can put it.
Not only that, like the Chargers came off a bye. Like you have to know you're playing a team who just got embarrassed. So first of all, you have to game plan for this talented team. You have to know, listen, they're coming in here to beat us, but you're coming off of a bye. You have to win that game. Like, so I already said the Chargers are not going to make the playoffs this year. I've said that already. So of course things got to play out, but I already said they're one of the teams that I'm taking out of the playoffs. I can't even say this is a really good win for Dallas. On paper, it looks like a really good win for Dallas, but the Chargers are the Chargers, and I don't expect them to be in the playoffs. So it's just like they beat a bad team, a non-playoff team who was coming off a bye, and they're supposed to be able to do that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't even know if it's even a good win on paper. The Chargers are 2-3 now. Like they're not. They're like they got star power. That just doesn't compete, and that to me that comes down to a lack of competing fire inside and a lack of coaching. Honestly, like I think those coaches are going to be the head coach is going to be gone. If not during the season, after the season, because he just can't get the best out of this team.
But like that's what I'm saying about the Chargers. If you just said on paper, that's a Super Bowl roster. If you just looked at it on paper, don't look at performance and stuff like that. They are good at the positions that you're supposed to be good at to compete and go to the Super Bowl. That's a Super Bowl roster, and somehow they're 2-3. That is the Chargers. And one day people will wake up and say, "Oh yeah, that's their culture," because they slide on that every year.
It's been that way even going back when Phillip Rivers and LaDainian Tomlinson was there, and they putting up good records during the regular season back then. But they get in the playoffs and they lose. Like the Patriots would beat them. I guess Patriots beat everybody, but like they would just lose in these dumb, stupid ways. They lose like the Steelers in some game. Like Cordell Stewart has his best game of his career in the playoffs against us. Like be like, why are y'all losing in these games and y'all supposed to be winning? Like what is wrong with y'all?
Like Gus Bradley rushed for 300.
Yeah, like Gus Farrat had his best game. Like, what is wrong with y'all?
Why did this happen? I don't get it.
Why does Bubby Brister 310 yards against you? Why?
Brister. Yeah, no, I get it. Man, it's awful. All right. So those were the games that we watched. Although we ain't really done with last week's games yet. So first we'll get into this segment. So now there are no more undefeated teams. Everybody has lost. With that said, I think people would be shocked at the teams who the final two undefeated teams who they lost to. So let's get to the next topic, which is a cuz you don't know original topic. Make it make sense. So tell me something about the 49ers losing to the Browns, and tell me something about the Eagles losing to the Jets. If you don't have anything good to say about either one, say that. But I need to hear something about what we just saw and what we witnessed.
I feel differently about both of those teams, the 49ers and the Eagles. The 49ers, so they both played against good defenses, and they both suffered injuries or walked into the game with injuries, right? So there's a little bit of built-in excuse making that can happen, right? If you put that to the side, I thought the 49ers actually played pretty well. They were moving the ball. I think Cleveland has the best defense in the NFL right now. I saw some stat. They've given up the least amount of yards over the first 6 games since like 1971. Some craziness like that. Like that's crazy thinking about how long ago that was, but also it's crazy because of how prolific offenses are in these last like 8, 9, 10 years. And it's the 49ers who put up yards and put up points, right? So
yeah, they put up like 30 pretty much every game this year.
Except they put up 42 against Dallas last week. So like the and all the injuries, Cleveland's defense was balling, and the 49ers still had a chance to win the game at the end. Their kicker just missed a 41-yard field goal at the end. If he makes that, there's alternative endings to that game where it plays out the exact same way and the kicker makes the field goal and they win, and we're not talking about this. The Eagles, on the other hand, I think have some problems. Again, they have the built-in excuses, but their offense has been disjointed all year. So they've been relying on big plays more so than even last year. So they can go chunks of the game without having much success, 3 and outs and not performing well, and then excuse me, a bomb to AJ Brown, and that makes up for a lot. That has made up for a lot of their flaws over the course of the rest of the game, and that's how they were winning a lot of their games. But the truth is, the team defenses have been playing Jalen Hurts a little bit differently. They're tricking him a little bit. And we saw that in that last interception that ended up losing them the game, where it looked like an all-out blitz, and the defensive backs and the linebackers backed out of it. It looked like it was in cover 4, and it was like a cover 2, I think. And dude just intercepted it. Hurst didn't get anything on it, and that was that. And that's been happening a little bit more than it happened last year. Just the simple fact that Hurts is taking a little bit more time to read defenses and sometimes not reading defenses as well. Add into the fact that it looked like, at least in that game, that they were on offense, especially kind of playing with their food a little bit. They didn't put the Jets away. A lot of like dumb turnovers, a lot of like fumbles.
14-3. They were up 14-3.
They were up 14-3. And like then like dumb turnovers started happening. And Devontae Smith dropping the ball a few times. Like they also were not competing. They didn't have that focus and that fire to like really put the Jets away. And then Hurts those interception, that's game. So the Eagles I look at it differently because I think the Eagles have some problems that the 49ers have yet to show, at least.
Mm-hmm. So when I look at both of these teams, I think both teams hit the snooze button. Normally I look at any team that does that and I say, that's a problem. With the 49ers, I agree it's a little bit less of a problem because I don't expect them for that to be a consistent thing with them. But anytime you hit the snooze button, you basically are saying, hey, this team or these aspects of this game or this thing that I should be taking seriously, I might overlook it. The best thing I can say for the 49ers is that the fact that they did lose. However, Cleveland didn't even have their starting quarterback. And I think that hits home a little bit more for San Fran because they're supposed to be this dominant in this juggernaut. You know what I mean? And that's how they rolled into the season, where they rolled in with the mantra that last year, if we would have had our quarterback, we go to the Super Bowl and we probably compete better with Kansas City and everything. They had this mantra in this thought. So for them to basically drop this game and overlook it, like if they had won the game, I would actually say that's more of a problem because now they're like, oh no, we lost. We lose to a team that we looked at and said we could just beat. With the Eagles, I looked at that and I thought that was a little bit more systematically issue coming into the season. People always undervalue what a offensive coordinator and what a defensive coordinator means to a team. And that's basically the culture. We've watched great defenses lose their defensive coordinator and all of a sudden they never can put it back together. So for a quarterback, that offensive coordinator, that's who they talk to, Like they don't really deal with the head coach as much. They deal with the culture for what this quarterback sees, what they know, what the problems are, how to put them in better positions. That's the offensive coordinator. When I look at the Eagles, I actually thought that they might struggle a little bit more, but they have been winning games in a way that even Jalen Hurts was like, I don't like how we're winning these games. We're winning these games, but I don't like how we're playing. I think the Eagles, looking at it, are a team that can be had more in that scenario than the 49ers because the Eagles are rolling over a different culture offensively and defensively and trying to make it work on the go. And I think that has a lot to do with this because they've been playing bad. They finally lost. And I'm curious to see what the blowback is. You know what I mean? Well, not the blowback, but what happens next for the Eagles because they could have dropped. This could have been their third loss, this year.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, their offense hasn't been playing all that well. You're right that at least on the offensive side, the offensive coordinator being new and this being his first offensive coordinator job probably has something to do with it. It's just some growing pains and him figuring out not only calling plays for this offense, but also just getting in a cadence of offensive play calling. Like, when this is successful, what do we do next? And then what's next? I also see that when the Eagles struggle, it's oftentimes because they're not running the ball. Mm-hmm. And they're one of the few teams in the NFL that needs to run the ball. And this game was one of those examples where they kind of just stopped trying to run the ball. They kind of forgot that they need to run the ball. So that's part of it too. I mean, with the 49ers, they lost Christian McCaffrey and Deebo Samuel in the game. Like, those are hard injuries in game to have to go through and also try to win the game. I mean, Had they walked into the game and those guys were out, that would be different. Like they could plan for that.
Mm-hmm.
Can't really plan for your best running back and your best wide receiver, who's also probably your second best running back, to go out during the game. That's tough. I look at the loss for the 49ers as less concerning as it is for the Eagles for those reasons. And also, again, I think Cleveland has the best defense in the NFL.
That's valid. I think that's a valid point. I also think that's a good place to put a pin in that too. I don't even want to add nothing to that. Actually, that was pretty. All right. First of all, that was a great segment. I'm glad that we back. We agreed on everything. We ain't even supposed to agree on anything. I don't know why we agreed on something. That's never happened, actually. But
True.
but we about to get into the next segment, which is our personal NFL power rankings, and I think I see some disagreements in the wind right now. So so let me get your top 10 teams in order in how you think they are right now in the NFL. Start from 10 and work your way to 1.
Okay, so number 10, I have the Cleveland Browns. Mm-hmm. Number 9, I have the Baltimore Ravens. Mm-hmm. Number 8, I have the Buffalo Bills. Number 7, I have the Dallas Cowboys. Number 6, I have the Jacksonville Jaguars. Excuse me. Number 5, I have the Philadelphia Eagles. Number 4, I have the San Francisco 49ers. Number 3, I have the Detroit Lions. Number 2, I have the Kansas City Chiefs. And number 1, I have the Miami Dolphins.
Ooh, you got Miami up at 1. I didn't see that one coming. I'm not gonna lie to you. So who did you so you're pretty high on Cleveland right now. You think they're 10? Like you're picking them like 10. Like if you just say 10, like that's the team. And why are you so high on Cleveland and they don't even have their starting quarterback yet? How'd they get to 10?
Well, I mean, he's going to come back. But he wasn't playing all that great even when he was there, when he was healthy. I think their defense is really good, and I think they do a good job of not only rushing the passer, but also doing that with only 4 down linemen and playing coverage behind that. And they have really good man coverage defenders. Their offense is pretty basic right now. It's not much going in terms of creativity. Nick Chubb is out for the year, obviously, but I think their defense carries the day for them.
Okay. When I just look at teams, even if they're like a really good or even great defensive team, usually that doesn't win a lot of games. Now in the playoffs, if you get that to the playoffs, it's scary. But usually that drops. You know what I mean? Like that drops a bunch of games. They usually like going back to when it was 16 games. They usually get you like a 9-7 record, or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, look, they are 3-2 right now. Mm-hmm. I think they're going forward. The division isn't as good as I thought it might be. Pittsburgh is winning some games, but they look not good at all on offense, especially.
Pittsburgh. Is it just me, or is Pittsburgh this year reminding you of that year when Tim Tebow was the quarterback of Denver, and they're like, how did they win this game? That happened about 3 times this year. Where I'm like, what happened? Like, how did they?
Like the Baltimore win last week, like they had no business winning that game, and then again, all of a sudden, Lamar Jackson throws an interception. Pickett throws one good pass to Pickett, and then it's a touchdown, and that's the game.
Yeah. So
okay. I just think Cleveland, their defense is good enough to win some games and stay in the game against really talented offenses. And then, it's what happens in the last 4 or 5 minutes of a fourth quarter, who has the ball, who can get in the field goal range, who can score a touchdown, those clutch points as they talk about it in basketball.
Okay. Cool. All right. So my list is a little bit different than yours. Not in terms of all the teams. The number 10 team is different. Um, but my number 10 team is more a little bit more of a projection, but I think they're back now. I'm going to Cincinnati Bengals at number 10. I think Joe Burrow had looked good. I wanted to see them against Seattle to see, I mean, to if I really felt like or like how they were going to play in terms of how I felt and everything. But yeah, I think they're back. I think I see a streak coming in their head, and they have a difficult schedule. But I've looked at them and saw two times where they were outplayed and still figured out how to win that game, and I'm like, okay, like they're going to play better than this. They were playing bad to start. So I got Bengals number 10. I have well, actually, my 9, 8, and 7, you could flip them however you want. I really wouldn't be mad. But I have Seattle number 9. I have Jacksonville number 8, and I have Baltimore number 7. Um, if when I look at all those teams, I say if you said that Jacksonville was better than Baltimore and Seattle, I wouldn't argue with you. But if you said Seattle was better than Baltimore and uh, Jacksonville right now, I would also look at you and say you probably got a point there. So,
Yeah,
so
I had Seattle was my 11th team. Seattle was the first team out for me. They're pretty good, and they're the only team to beat Detroit.
yes, and I'm actually going to get into that. So yeah, so I got Bengals 10, Seattle 9, Jags 8, Baltimore 7. I got Buffalo at 6. I got um I got Philly at 5. I got 49ers at 4. I got Detroit at 3. I got the Dolphins at 2, and I got Kansas City at 1. I think we're just kind of bored with Kansas City because if we're going to be honest about it, the wide receiver core probably is better than it was last year, and that won a Super Bowl. We know the wide receiver core is bad. We know it's bad, but you knew it was bad last year too, and they won a Super Bowl. So when the fact that their defense is actually better, I'm still wrapping my mind around why their defense is really this good because I still see them as Chris Jones and a bunch of guys, but they have like a legit top 5 defense, and so I think we're just bored with them. Yeah. So my only issue with Miami is they got to play a certain way. I think if they figure out we got to run the ball, we have to run the ball in order to be good. I think that that could be a devastating blow for the rest of the league. I don't think they're going to make that change. Detroit to me has out of the one loss teams has the best loss,
Mm-hmm.
losing to Seattle. And that's why I look at them in that way. And of course, Niners and the Eagles, they lost to teams I didn't really think they would lose to. But they're like, well, now when you look at the NFC, like there's 3 teams that are 5-1 at the top of that division, or the top of that conference. Excuse me. And I think that's going to be exciting between those 3 teams for this whole season.
Yeah, you throw in the Charger-ish Cowboys. They're 4-2.
I left them off.
They yeah, I know. I noticed. But they're
they
gonna
don't have a
they'll
good
be
win. To me, they don't have a good win. It's supposed to be the Chargers, and I don't think that's it. So when I look at who they beat teams they were supposed to beat, but they lost to the teams that were as good, if not better than them.
yeah. Well, I mean, the Cardinals were not better than them. They beat them, but they weren't better than them. But
Listen, hold
I
on. With the Dennis, what's his name? He was Dennis Green. With Dennis Green, they are who we thought they were. Okay, that's what the Cardinals said. Okay, they
that's what
are
they
who
said.
we thought they were.
And look, I'm not even advocating for the Cowboys. All I'm saying is they will be a fun team to watch in the NFC. They're a step below Detroit 49ers and the Eagles for sure. I agree. I just wanted to mention them as a team that in the NFC are just going to be fun. The one of the bad things about the Eagles losing against the Jets is it's silly to say like a team like a 5-0 team had a must win in week 6, but their next several games, I forgot the order, but it includes like it's 2 Dallas games. There's a Washington game in there. There's a Seattle game in there. There's a Buffalo game in there. there's a Kansas City game in there, and there's a San Francisco game in there.
And Miami's next week.
And Miami's next week, this upcoming week. So like,
yeah,
they're gonna play like the 4 or 5 of the 10 best teams in the NFL, and then and 4 are like top 6 or something like that, like something stupid like that. They could be like week 15 and they're below 500 or something silly like that. Like it's
like, I get exactly what you're saying. They're going to drop some of these games, so they're going to drop some of these games. So I get exactly what you're saying. I get exactly what you're saying. Dallas was my 11th team, just to let you know. But either one. Okay, I thought I was about to cuss at you there. I thought for sure. I said this. He gonna say something stupid, and I'm not gonna like it. I thought for sure. All right, cool. Well, let's get to the games to watch next week. So, first game is that I have on there is Jags versus Saints. The reason why I threw that on there is because I think if you look at the upside of the Saints, it's an interesting game. Where will they play? I'm not sure. But Jacksonville has also been a team that's been iffy up and down, but clearly better. In this game, we'll see what's going on. But who do you think is going to win this game?
I think it's gonna be the Jags. The Saints are less good than they have been in a long time, less talented than they have been in a while. They used to be able to rely on a pretty dominant defense and a pretty dominant offensive line. And their offensive line this year is just not good. And their defense is less dominant than it has been before. And they don't have the weapons or the quarterback to overcome those problems that they have, or the less talent that they have on in those departments. I like Olave. Thomas has come back and played well. Derek Carr is just kind of Derek Carr. Like Derek Carr is like a lesser Kirk Cousins, and that's just not going to get you places.
You think Kirk Cousins is better than Derek Carr? I don't think Kirk Cousins is better than Derek Carr.
I think Kirk Cousins is for sure, but they're definitely better than Derek Carr. Kirk Cousins is my like, if your quarterback is not better than Kirk Cousins, you cannot be a contender for the Super Bowl.
Yeah, but like but Derek Carr actually carried some stuff, and like where like the team was not so good.
What did he carry?
All right, so when he was his like last year second last year when he was with the Raiders, they made the playoffs, and it was their number one wide receiver was what's the little guy's name? He was shifty. He was only good for that year. But
Renfro.
Hunter Renfro was there. Darren Waller wasn't playing. They didn't have another wide receiver. I think even Jacobs was even hurt. They had no business to be in the playoffs, and he took them to the playoffs. It's not the first time he's done.
The only reason they went to the playoffs is because they beat the Chargers in the last game of the season, and it's the Chargers.
What I'm saying is, over the course of the year, this is what he had all year. I don't care that you feel like that. His upside is clearly a lot higher than Kirk Cousins. His floor is lower too. Is lower too. But his upside, after Kirk Cousins can't do what Derek Carr did. I'm not with
Derek Carr. Derek Carr doesn't have anything that's even a good quality. He's average everywhere.
Actually, I'm actually going with the Saints this game. So it being in New Orleans, I think, like I said, the Jaguars have not played great, and the Saints are coming off of a loss in which they should have won. I just want to check like who did they just lose to? Because I actually forgot. Yeah, the Texans.
Houston, right?
Yeah. They lost to the Texans. You know what I mean? They should they look at that and say we should win that. So I definitely feel like they're coming back at home, getting some of that gumbo, that good cooking. Jacksonville don't know nothing about that, and they're gonna take care of business.
Man, don't be disrespecting Florida cuisine.
It ain't the gumbo though.
Jacksonville all day.
All right. Next, we got Lions versus Ravens. And that game is, I believe it's in Baltimore, right? Yeah, it's in Baltimore.
Yeah, so look, Baltimore should win because they're at home, and the history of Jared Goff suggests that he'll get shook. That said, Baltimore is playing like pretty average so far this year, and Jared Goff is playing probably the best he's ever played in his career. So I'm going to go with Baltimore, but I don't feel confident about it.
Okay. I was actually just running through their quick little injury report. Nobody's out. Nobody's out, and Baltimore doesn't even have anybody on it. I think Baltimore is a weird team. I'm going with Baltimore this week. Them playing at home, they usually play very good at home, and they usually play. They're not exactly one of those teams that play up or down compared to their who they're playing, but I think they come into this game respecting Detroit. Detroit being on the road, coming into the elements, being a dome team, all of that always comes into play. Baltimore, like I said, this looks like a Lamar Jackson game where you remember who he is. Not to say that that's like what to expect, but I think they look at this and say, all right, we have to have our best, be our best to do this. And I think he shows up. Lamar Jackson does show up in in good spots, in my opinion.
Yeah, and it'll be an interesting week for Detroit because this is probably the pinnacle of all the hype around Detroit. Like they have never had this much hype behind them, probably in my lifetime. Like they to be 5-1 and be Detroit. That I don't think that's ever happened. Not even going back to Barry Sanders. So like
that's funny as you said it. I was going to say I was picking Detroit on Tecmo football, but like nobody else was. You know what I'm saying?
right, because it was Barry Sanders and like Herman Moore, and that was it. So it'll be interesting to see how this team, who outside of Jared Goff is fairly young, handles that hype going on the road into Baltimore. Like you said, Baltimore usually plays well at home, so I'm picking them. I don't feel great about it because I don't feel great about how Baltimore is playing on offense.
Okay, good call. All right. Next up, we got the Chargers at the Chiefs.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know why I would feel like I should take the Chargers in this game. I mean, we just talked about how they don't show up in big games and how they just lose in Chargerish ways. I just assume that's going to happen again. Chiefs are 5-1 and they're playing well, and there's no reason to believe why they're going to lose at home to the Chargers.
So I think in division games, weird stuff happens from time to time. Like one thing that I always remember, for some strange reason, the Miami Dolphins used to win like 2 games all year, and one of them would be against like the Super Bowl winning New England Patriots. I don't know why that would happen, but it's that in division games. I do think the Chargers are a bad team. I don't think that this changes anything. Do I think that the Chiefs are going to sweep them for a second straight year? I don't, and I think something's got to give, and I think this is probably it. So I'll go with the Chargers on this one.
Okay, don't bet.
I'm not going to bet it.
Don't lose your money.
There's no money going down on this. I'm just saying, inter-division games, weird stuff happens. Weird shit happens from time to time.
Miami would beat the Patriots because they would always schedule the game that late season game to be the game in Miami to be early in the season when it's hot, and the Patriots would just not be able to handle the heat.
I mean, whatever is however is whenever, but they won the game. You know what I mean? And it'd be like when you look at like year after year, they got like a top 3 pick, and they won 2 games, and one of them was like, how did they beat the Patriots? Like, you know what I mean? And nobody could ever figure it out. So okay. And finally, the final game that I want to watch, because the Monday night game is the Bills and the Vikings. But let's talk about these Miami Dolphins. 5-1 Miami Dolphins going into Philly to play the 5-1 Philadelphia Eagles.
So Eagles have a lot of injuries. I would need to know who's playing, because like that entire secondary, which isn't very good to begin with, was like basically out by the end of the Jets game. So if that's the case, Miami's going to throw all over them. It's going to be a pretty embarrassing loss for the Eagles. If those players play, the Eagles have a chance. I'd still pick the Dolphins to win just because of how well they're playing and how down the Eagles are right now. I'd be fairly surprised if the Eagles win. That's not to say they can't win, and if they do win, I think that'll say a lot about the team and about Jalen Hurts and all of that about bouncing back. But I'm actually picking against the Eagles. I'm picking the Dolphins.
I'm looking, and I was actually just looking at trying to find their injuries if they have.
Like Lane Johnson's out. There might probably is going to be out too. Like it's
Yeah,
going to be a rough one for the
yeah.
Eagles.
So the Dolphins don't really have any injuries.
Well,
Eagles on their injury
A
report.
Chain is going to miss the game. He's on injury reserve.
Who is?
A Chain, the running back.
Okay. Oh yeah. But right now, when I'm looking at it, I'm looking at ESPN's injury report. It just says Quez Watkins.
Oh, so like Reed Blankenship and Darius Slay are going to play.
Is it? But like they're not even questionable. Like and I'm looking at there's other teams that have questionable.
Okay. Well, then I'll pick Dolphins in a close one.
Okay. So I'm going with Eagles on this one. And I'll tell you why. Like I said, I think so Miami, once again, they're a team that could put up 70 on you. You know, I don't
Literally.
think yeah, literally. So but when I look at them, when you say the Eagles have bad corners, I don't think you stop Miami by really saying, all right, Tyreek Hill, I got to stop him, and Jalen Waddle, I got to stop him. I think if you get to Tua, the points come down, and I think Buffalo showed that. You know what I mean? Like yes, those weapons are the weapons. Like so, Tyreek Hill, like his numbers are crazy and everything like that. Um, I won't even go into that. I'm not even going there because he has too many numbers to prove what I feel about him really as a wide receiver. Um, but I think the points can come down. I think the Eagles coming off of a bad loss, and anytime a team's coming off of an embarrassment, I think they play up, and the potential of the Eagles is scary. And being at home, coming off of a loss to a team, people looking at it saying, "Oh, well, this is the better team." So you know, I mean, there's a lot of locker room chatter that could be used for that. I look at the Eagles and say they can play the way that the Dolphins don't want to play, and the Eagles can play that game and win.
Yeah, I mean, look, like I said before, when the Eagles are struggling, it's usually because they're not running the ball. Like they just stopped running the ball. With the exception of the Super Bowl loss, actually, that was the case up and down the season last year. So if the Eagles go back to their roots and run the ball and both with their running backs and with Hurts, control the clock, limit Miami's offensive possessions.
Right.
They have a really good chance. It's not like the Eagles are sorry. It's not like they're bad. It's just that they forget sometimes. They fall in love with their wide receiver talent. And when it's rolling, it looks really good and it feels really good watching them. But if a receiver starts, dropping passes or if Hurts isn't reading things quickly enough, it looks really silly sometimes, especially when they can run the ball as well as they can. So if they approach this game like we're going to run the ball and control the clock, they have a good chance.
Well, they will see. But I think, like I said, I think the potential of the Eagles is scary. And I think they can play the game that Miami does not want to play. And at home, coming off a bad loss, angry, I can see that happening. Title of this episode: Mooch on the Loose.
Dude, nobody's going to get it. It's just going to be you and mom that understand what that means.
I don't need them to get it. I don't need them to get it. This is my show. I don't need me to get it, and I get it.
Whatever, man.
Thank you, man. My big brother coming on the show. And I always tell people, anytime you can get your big brother on the show, you're doing something right. Because y'all just like talk and blah, 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 blah. So if you came on, that means I must be doing something right. So I'm happy once again. Thank you for coming on the show. I'll see you in a couple weeks for my fans and my viewers. Once again, thanks for tuning in. You can catch us again at Spotify, YouTube for the full episodes, the clips, on TikTok, Facebook, Instagram. I don't know if you've watched the Instagram and how many views we've started to get, but we started to blow up, man. It's skyrocketing. I'm very curious to see how many views we get with this one, but I'm pretty confident what we're going to do. But as always, Mooch, I got to tell you something. Cuz you don't know football. Thank you again for coming in, man.
Be good, man.
I will.